the show where you can ask me anything that you like about politics, and we will get to answering it. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Every question is accepted here, regardless of if it is simple or complicated, or if it's a left wing question or a right wing question. Everybody is welcome here. So go ahead and throw your questions in the chat, and we will get to answering them. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics, and no one's going to make fun of you for being uninformed or uneducated or anything like that. And everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. This is not a show for fighting. This is not a show for debating. This is not a show where Democrats and Republicans yell at each other and call each other names or argue about stupid culture war shit. This is just good faith answers to good faith questions. We're going to engage on the substance, and we're not going to get into fights or bully anybody or harass anybody or anything. D. Scott says, what do you feel about the new Epstein war? It's funny to refer to the war in Iran as the Epstein war because, you know, an argument could be made. I think Rachel Maddow made a really good point about it looking like this was a war that Trump did because he got a lot of money from the Qataris and the Saudis and the Emiratis, and they wanted this war to happen potentially more than Israel even. But yeah, you know, getting dog walked by Netanyahu, getting dog walked by everybody that bribed him, you know, it's just so fucking stupid and dangerous, and I feel terrible for all the people who've been hurt by this. It's just like, yeah, I mean, it seems so egregious that we might actually see some accountability if people do the work for it, you know? All right. Somebody whose names are a bunch of what look like Eastern European letters says, why Russia didn't help Iran? I have no idea what Russia's relationship is with Iran. What's up? It's the Rocketeer. Great to see you again. Exo says, what happened in the Middle East was needed. How could you disagree? I guess I would disagree because we've done this so many times before, Exo, and it always works out terribly. Like it's bad for America, it's bad for the countries we're invading. Like, yeah, you know, this doesn't work. We've seen this play out so many times before, Exo, and I find it strange that there's anybody out there, Exo, who would try to claim that this was a good thing. You know. Alrighty. So yeah, Ivar Big Wrench says, add to the Iranian people. I don't know what that means. Triska says, what are the objectives of this war? Your guess is as fucking as good as mine, Triska. Chili Willy, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. But yeah, it's like, you know, Trump is just getting dog walked by the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Qataris and Netanyahu and distracting from the Epstein files and making a ton of money for the military industrial complex and, you know, doing the bidding of Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham. He wants the good press from every time in the past that he's bombed things and it's worked out, you know. But at least 3 Americans have died. A bunch of school children died in Iran. People are getting hurt because of Iran's firing missiles at places. It's an irresponsible, baseless, strategyless escalation for no fucking reason. Okay, JC says, do you really think Iran should have a nuclear weapon? No, that's why I supported the Iran nuclear deal that Obama put together, because that was going to stop it, and then Trump threw that in the garbage for no fucking reason. Shork says, with the Democrats complaining that there isn't a clear justification and not that the war is wrong, I don't know anymore. You know me, Shork, I don't really give a shit if Democratic messaging isn't perfect. There are definitely specific Democrats that I think are fucking nailing it, like AOC's response I thought was pretty on point. But yeah, nitpicking the Democrats' response when the thing to be mad about is Trump starting a fucking war in Iran and the Republican Congress not stopping him immediately, that's where my rage is going. I don't really give a shit about if the Democrats aren't using the exact words that I want them to. Egg says, who are the bad guys in the situation, America and Israel or Iran? I mean, it's tough because the Iran government is not great. Like, there are a bunch of really shitty people there also, but we started this war. Israel and America started this war. And so everything that happens after this is on us. NYC says the Zeo cockroaches dragged the U.S. into another war. I mean, can we just say that this was Trump, please? Because Trump did that, you know? Let's see here. Chance says, LOL, everyone involved is the bad guy. Yeah, kinda, Chance. Thompson says, hey, did you hear about that party in the King Solomon Hotel? I don't know what that's in reference to. Eastern European Letters says Iran has rejected the nuclear deal about 3 times. I mean, well, they worked really hard with us to negotiate that deal, and then Trump threw it in the garbage for no fucking reason. So you might understand why they would be skeptical about dealing with us in the future. But also, they were open to negotiate. They were in the middle of negotiating with Trump when he decided to start this war. Ron Grant says Trump had no American business in Iran. I have no idea what his business connections are in Iran. I believe it's probably very likely that he is eyeing business deals in Iran, but I don't know what actually is happening. Jeannie says, can we agree this is a major distraction from Trump? I think you probably mean for Trump. But yeah, it is both a distraction and also a stupid fucking thing that he is doing at the same time. All right, EG says, realistically, Iran have done nothing wrong. They can't be called the bad guy, not even a little. I don't know. I mean, they are a repressive regime, a repressive theocracy that has been murdering their own citizens who have been protesting against them. So it's like, yeah, they're the bad guys in that sense, you know. Chris Lamech says, Bibi visits Trump a week later, Venezuela. Bibi visits again a week later, Iran. Owned much? Question mark. Yeah, again, Trump is letting Israel and Netanyahu dogwalk him into wars. Dogwalk us into wars. Ken Overholt says, no way Trump started this war. It was Antifa and FBI infiltrators in our military that caused this. I am going to take that as facetious, Ken. I do not believe a human being would actually say that. Anthony Souza says, which crusade is thins now? I don't know what that means. Ken says, sarcasm. Yeah, that's what I figured. Decky says, tell me about Yugoslavia and why it was bombed by NATO. I don't know anything about Yugoslavia. I do not know anything about NATO bombing Yugoslavia. John Abbott, great to see you again, says, the objective of the war is Trump thinking it will justify him canceling the midterms. That is another possible justification. Which crusade is this now? Yeah, I think I'm with you, Anthony. The Fixer Mike, great to see you again, says, what a weekend. We already lost 3 jets. Yeah, and it was because the fucking Kuwaitis accidentally shot it down, right? So fucking stupid. Fogworld Production says, the Third Crusade has the most aura, the fourth is the most depressing. Willie says, I heard Israel has been threatening nukes against its enemies to coerce the U.S. to fight its wars. I haven't seen that reporting, Willie, but it's possible. Countryman says, it's all Biden's fault. He messed up the country. Is that sarcasm, Countryman? Because that is the most nonsense take I think I've ever heard. EG says, the majority of the people in Iran support their government, so America should leave them alone. I mean, I don't know if that's true about the majority of the people in Iran supporting their government, but I do agree that America should leave them alone. Havoc says, the United States should have done this 47 years ago. We haven't had a strong leader until now. I don't believe that you're a real person, Havoc. You have to ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Jeff Hardy says, how's Venezuela doing? Venezuela's doing the exact same as it was before we kidnapped their leader. Chance says, what a shit show that was. There goes $300 million in aircraft. Completely agree there. Carson says, how about that border wall? Yeah, where's that shit? W says, what do you think about Hong Kong's relative decline as a financial capital in the world economy? I'm not 100%. Ceflon says, I'm off this train, man. It's becoming more apparent they don't care. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Ceflon. I'm not really sure what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm not really up on what Hong Kong's financial world is like, but I will say that it appears as though all of the things that Trump has done to weaken America's standing in the globe is happening for the benefit of China. Alrighty, let's see here. The Fixer Mike says, you young folks should look at what Iran was like before the revolution in 1978. It was contemporary AF. That is 100% accurate. W says, will the AI bubble ever pop? Most likely. 78 says, my name is Jesse. Good to meet you, Jesse. Penn was broke says, you are Parker. I don't know what that means. Traveling Gantz says, why are gas prices up after Iran? We have oil from Venezuela? Question mark. The oil from Venezuela is not the kind of oil that we can just like take and then immediately put into our cars. Like, there's a lot of work that needs to go into that oil before it can actually start lowering prices for us here in America. And the damage of the global oil supply trade that the war has already wrought is the reason why gas prices are currently going up. Carson says, Congress ain't worth a damn. Well, it is, the Republican Party is in charge of Congress. So, there you go. EG says, why are America and Israel spreading lies to the world about Muslim countries? What is their end goal? Well, I wouldn't say that America and Israel. I would specify that those countries' governments are doing that. And the reason why Trump and the Republican Party are doing that is because it's part of a general global culture war of elevating white supremacy and Christian nationalism. William says, what do we think about immigration? Immigration is a net positive. Carson says, that's what I'm saying. They don't get nothing done. Republicans don't get anything done when they're in charge of Congress, so we should vote for Democrats instead. Chance says, the Venezuelan oil, while huge in stores, is super low quality and very expensive to refine. That is 100% accurate. Maddie says, should Americans get out of Iran or keep going? We should get out of Iran. Cephalon says, there are enough Republicans who are against this that Congress needs to limit his power. 100% agree, Cephalon. I think that it is a massive indictment of the Republican Party that this has not happened yet. Like, what the fuck were y'all waiting for? Hey, Republicans in Congress, in the Senate, what are you waiting for? What is going on? Is this happening today? Is this happening tomorrow? What the fuck, man? All right, somebody who looks like they've got Hebrew letters says, Bibi and Trump show Khomeini who's boss. Cool. I mean, a bunch of people are dead. It's so fucking stupid, man. Right. RD says, hope you're well, Jared. Iran assault will come down to a transition plan. What is your thoughts? I think I'm not really a betting man, but if I had to bet the house on something, I would bet the house on this is going to go poorly, and it is going to go poorly in a very big way. The longer that it goes on for, the worse it is going to go. EG says, who is wrong in the Palestine and Israel conflict? I mean, they're both kind of wrong. I put a little bit more weight on Israel because Israel is the more powerful country and military. And so I think that when you are in that position, it is your job to be the peace broker. Even if, Hamas is shooting rockets into your country that you are knocking out of the sky and aren't killing anybody. Alex says, are you anti-fascist? Yes. Mike says, oil and gas prices will skyrocket. Accurate. We're already seeing that. Crit Life says, don't expect our allies to help us out much since Trump burned all those bridges. 100% accurate there as well. EG says, how are they both kind of wrong in the Israel and Palestine conflict? Sure. For decades, both Israel and Palestine have been attacking each other. And, when Palestine, voted for a group to sort of rule over them, they chose Hamas, and Hamas did war crimes against the people of Israel. So there you go. Alrighty. Let's see here. Alex says, Big W 161. I know you're not referring to the school children, the 100+ school children that were killed by an Israeli bomb in Iran, Alex. I sure hope that's not what you're referring to. Chance says, sadly, I don't think we will ever see peace as Americans with military-industrial complex. We will if we just replace the people who are in charge with people who are not this. The greater, I don't know what that is. Cricket 17. The Fixer Mike says, I was watching UK Parliament and the PM isn't interested in joining the war, only in protecting people. I mean, I'm glad that they're not interested in joining the war. Crit Life says, Netanyahu is a terrible strategic thinker. That is accurate. Marky Mark says, should we arm the Iranian patriots? I don't know how productive that would be. I'm open to an argument for it, but my gut is telling me that is escalatory and bad. Alex says 161 means anti-fascist action. Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. I wonder what the derivation of that is. Peaks Sawan says this is very relevant. I promise. I don't know what is. Matthew Cordero. I don't know what Ashawn is. David Douglas says when they changed the name to the Department of War was the time for Republicans to stand up to Trump. I mean, I thought it was pre-January 6th, David Douglas. So, yeah, we keep on giving the Republican Party moments when it's like, all right, you can be normal here now. You can stop doing this shit, and they just keep on fucking going, All right, Chan says, interesting that Middle East doesn't like Iran. To be fair, Iranians identify as Persian, not Arab. Oh, I mean, the amount of things that I don't know about the culture and governments over there, could fill the fucking ocean. So, yeah, this is all fucking news to me. Matthew Cordero says, is this only Western politics? That's what I know the most about Matthew, so you can ask. I just might not know the answer. Triska, Muzzking, Chili Willy, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. GSDM says, is it okay to treat ICE agents like Amazon delivery drivers? I mean, I hope that you're treating Amazon delivery drivers nicer than you are treating ICE agents. Roll Tide Man says, this host hates America. No, I don't. I love America. I was born and raised in America. Right. Oh, A-F-A, anti-faction. Oh, interesting. It's the Rocketeer. User 07 says, thoughts on Keir Starmer? I do not know a lot about Keir Starmer. I know that he's Labour, and I support Labour. And so I suspect that part of the reason why everybody in the UK is mad at Keir Starmer is because in the UK you probably suffer from the same disease that we suffer from in the West, in America, of judging the left-wing parties way more harshly than we judge the right-wing parties. The Tories were in charge of the UK for decades. They fucked up everything, and now, the Labour's in charge for a hot second, and y'all are already so pissed at them that you're ready to get rid of them. Like, doesn't seem fair to me. All right. Wabi says, Jared, I should correct you. Hamas is not in charge of Palestine in its entirety. It's only in charge of the Gaza Strip. Yes, that is 100% accurate. I sometimes say Palestine as a shorthand, even though there are two distinct regions of Gaza and the Gaza and the West Bank. Okay, John Abbott says, did you see they are saying everyone the Trump administration thought were the best people to become the new government in Iran also got taken out in the bombings? I did not see that, John Abbott. Thank you for that update. All right, David Douglas says, read some Chris Hedges for Insight into the Middle East, former New York Times East reporter and author. I'll put it on the list, David. I'm always interested in learning new shit. Chili Willy, D Scott, Triska, Willie, and K Bird. Thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And you know what that means, everybody? That means it is time for Finger Hearts. I don't really feel like being silly about Finger Hearts because I'm very upset about Trump starting a war in Iran. Is Evil Dean a man or a woman? Says, what is socialism? I mean, everybody's got a different definition. What do you think socialism is? Dragon Killer says, what can we do as the people of America? There are so many things that we can do, Dragon Killer. There is protesting and striking and boycotting. You can call your representatives and tell them whether or not they're doing a good job or a bad job, depending on if you have Democratic or Republican, representatives. You can organize. You can join groups that are already doing this work, like Vote Save America or Run for Something or Indivisible or Swing Left. You can talk to people. We need to recruit people, and we need to convince people. And so so long as we're not sitting on our hands and hoping that somebody comes and saves us, we're doing the work, and recognize that we are a country of 330 million people. So maybe we're not always going to see the effect of our effort, but it does exist. And so if you want more information on how to do the work, check out my Discord. I got a whole thread about it. D. Scott, Crystal, Triska, and Willie, thanks so much for reaching my first Finger Hearts goal of the day. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay. Crit Life says, our reps are solely the people in the cabinet because Congress has no voice in government decisions anymore. So that is not 100% accurate, Crit. It is true that the Republican Party has acquiesced and given all of their power to Donald Trump, but that is not, generally speaking, what Congress's role is. I think Congress needs to actually step up and do their fucking job. And if they don't, then I think that we need to vote to replace them with people who actually do their fucking job. Dragon Killer says, how do we do that safely if ICE can unalive with seemingly no punishment? That is a really good question, Dragon Killer. And so here's my answer to you. We are all going to do the things that are an acceptable risk for us. And so there is plenty of work for you to do, Dragon Killer, that does not necessitate you even leaving your house. You know, I'm out here with my whole ass name and face on the internet. I could potentially become a target. So this is the level of risk that I am willing to endure. You know, I did not fly to Minnesota to fucking, you know, butt heads with ICE and CPB when all that shit was going on. That was a risk that I was not willing to take. Okay, Crit Life says, I had a bit of sarcasm there. All right, sweet. Thank you for the clarification. Alrighty, let's see here. Alfie says, do you think Trump will get impeached if Democrats win the midterms? 100%. Absolutely. It is extremely likely. Yes. It's extremely likely that Democrats will retake the House. When that happens, then 100% Trump is getting impeached. At least one more time. Potentially more. Telemachus says, it's too late. Why don't people realize it's time for serious action? I guess I don't understand what you mean by serious action, and I also don't agree that it's too late. It's never too late. You know, what one person makes, another person can unmake, and vice versa. So we can always save the country. We can always be better. We can always make up for past mistakes. Lee Alcohol says, you are the IRGC side or the USA Israel? I'm not on the side of Iran. I'm against the war. I'm against Trump. The Fixer Mike says, federal government wants to remove people from the voter rolls to stop impeachment. That is 100% accurate. BitNevo says, it seems like the Project 2025 people are trying to nationalize farms. Could they starve us? I haven't heard any of that reporting, BitNevo, but yeah, that is fucking terrifying. It's a terrifying prospect. User a whole bunch of numbers says, Team Iran or Team Trump? That's not really... That's not like a binary choice. Like, you can be against the government of Iran and also still be against the government of America. Teddy says, why are you against Trump? That's a massive question, Teddy. He is a corrupt, narcissistic liar who is hurting a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are dead and suffering because of him and the things that he has done, Teddy. All right. Gray Thigaj says, should Kim press the button? No. Green Valley says, free Britney, Democrats left, free Iran, Democrats mourn. I don't know what that means. Shork says, thoughts on Israel targeting left-leaning Iranian figures, supposedly. I haven't seen any of that reporting, but I mean, I guess it would make sense. You know, like, it's better for the Netanyahu government if the more radical right-wing element is in charge of Iran, and that way they would have more justification for, you know, doing more strikes and, you know, bombing more of their civilians and shit like that. Trevor says, those against the government don't need to be in the government. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. What I think you're saying, Trevor, and I could be wrong about this, just based on your tone, is that if you are against the government the way the Republican Party is against the government, like, ergo they believe the government should not exist, and they just think that everything should be privatized and there should be no regulations, then yeah, you should not be in the government because, you know, etc., etc. Teddy says, really, name one person that Trump has killed. Rene Good. There you go, Teddy. Enjoy. Fletch Lives Again says, thoughts on massive increase in 2027 military budget. Trump is asking for 50% more, 1.5 trillion total. I think that Democrats should fight him on that. I think that if there was ever a time where Americans were going to support the Democratic Party putting their foot down on military funding, it is now. Alrighty. David Douglas says, well, they target moderate Palestinians to keep the view they only want extremist leaders. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't read anything about that. Fletch Lives Again says, even Republicans might not like that. 100%. 100% accurate. Fletch Lives Again. It's the Rocketeer says, Teddy is going to be like, well, actually, Trump didn't kill her because he wasn't there, her. Let's wait. Let's wait and see what Teddy's reaction is. I think you probably nailed it, but, we shall see. Okay, let's scroll up and see if we can catch any interesting comments or questions here. Matthew Cordero says, thoughts on Turkey? I don't know enough about Turkey to talk about. Okay. Who's this Terry fellow getting into fights with people? Catfish says, what is China's GDP compared to the USA's? Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that, Catfish. I'm so sorry. I would say that if you are worried about America's economy stagnating while China's economy is accelerating, it is very likely Trump's fault that is happening. Okay, Flamingo Mo says, thoughts on what happens to Ukraine because of this Iran business? Oh, I've got absolutely no fucking idea. Let's see here. Can I connect those dots on the fly? If America has fewer resources to help Ukraine because we've committed resources to the Middle East and to Venezuela, that could potentially hurt the Ukrainians. However, I did just read something about how Russia is very upset about this, about America and Israel escalating things with Iran. So I'm not really sure where that goes. Sorry, I'm just sort of like, I'm examining my own ignorance in real time here. Okay, Dragon Killer says, I'm more worried about human beings that have done no wrong be sent away. It's dumb. I'm completely with you on that one. 100% accurate, Dragon Killer. All right, Heart Emoji says, what are your thoughts on socialism in a big city like NYC? I don't know. I am not going to make an argument for like a full socialist government, but I do believe that democratic socialists like Mamdani are doing good work and are helping people. Trevor says, USA was stagnant when Biden was in power. He did absolutely nothing but let others play president and somehow slap Trump's faults. I don't agree with anything that you just said there, Trevor. Wait, are you the dude that said name one person? No, that was Teddy. All right, yeah. You're sus as hell, Trevor. Sorry, I don't really buy the shit that you're saying. Anyways. All right, John Abbott says, did you see Nick Fuentes respond to the attack on Iran by spending the weekend telling his followers not to vote in the midterms or to vote for Democrats because this administration must be shut down? I did not hear about that. I love it when there's infighting on the right. Excellent reporting, John Abbott. All right, everybody. Andy Ent says, who are you voting for? Democrats up another ballot. Specified Pentalope says, all right, no, that's just a spam person, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that person. And to everybody else, welcome to the live stream. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics. I know that there's a lot of really weird shit going on in politics these days. It can be very confusing, and there's misinformation and propaganda out there. So this is the place where you can ask all those questions. No one's going to fight you. No one's going to yell at you. No one's going to argue with you. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican or a Democrat or something in the middle or something on the outskirts. Dragon Killer says, okay with this stuff going on. I'm not sure if that's a question or a statement or what. What is up, RK? Great to see you again. Flamingo Mo says, who do you think will win the Texas Senate Republican primary? Probably the more extreme MAGA candidate. I forget which one is which. Montana 2 Rice says, what will it take for Trump to be removed from office? Serious. So the main thing to get Trump out of office will be to put pressure on people who are currently in Congress to remove Trump from office. That's your best bet. Second place would be Democrats would have to win the midterms by such an overwhelming majority that we could actually vote to remove him from office after the midterms. You know, in order to do it just Democratic votes, Democrats would need to win every single Senate seat that is up for election this November, which would be very, very difficult, but not impossible. I mean, considering how unpopular all the things that Donald Trump is doing are, it's possible. It's becoming more possible the less popular he becomes and the more shitty, stupid things that he does. But I don't think that we need all 67 of those seats in order to remove him from office, because I think there's probably some convincible Republicans in there as well, you know, especially, again, considering how unpopular Trump is and is going to continue to become. Teddy says, Trump will go down in history as one of the best presidents we ever had. Interesting that you didn't respond to my comment, so you're out of here. Let's see here. Fog of War. It was the second half of the first thing I said. Scrolling. Let me know if you have any other questions about removing Trump from office, Montana to Rice. Fog War Production says, politics, war, here in Mordor, they are one and the same. What the hell was that a reference to? That sounds so familiar. Is that like, is that Starship Troopers? Dragon Killer says, all right, did that one already. Fog of War says, did you see that Fuentes is telling his followers to vote Democrat in the midterms? I did see that, and I love it when the right fights. The Fixer Mike says, I rooting for the carriage driver who carries a scythe. I think I know what that's in reference to. Dragon Killer says, also, what is your view on the warehouse being bought in Texas with an incinerator? I haven't heard that they are going to try to start throwing immigrants and shit into an incinerator. That's new information for me. It seems a little extreme. I'm a little skeptical that that's a real thing, but it is true that ICE is buying tons and tons of warehouses across the country to be detention facilities, and we already know that they don't give a shit about who they round up, that they are rounding up and torturing and sexually assaulting and murdering people indiscriminately and in those detention facilities. And so whether or not there's an incinerator, I think is a little, beside the point. They're already doing all the awful things, Okay, John Abbott says, this may be one of the first times he's doing something for genuinely good reasons. Yeah, potentially, John Abbott. Dragon Killer says, I can send you the short I watched and they had proof. I don't really, I just don't buy it, Dragon Killer. I'll look for the reporting, but yeah, if it's a video that you saw on Instagram Shorts, consider me extremely skeptical. Montana 2 Ray says, if Epstein files reveal a crime has been committed by Trump, what will happen next as far as impeachment? I don't want to say never, because sometimes weird shit happens, but it is extremely unlikely that there will be any legal consequences for Donald Trump while Republicans are in charge of Congress and while Donald Trump's FBI and DOJ heads are still in their current positions. So, yeah, extremely unlikely. Best case scenario, we can have Democrats take over Congress in the midterms, and then we could potentially start seeing some accountability. Heart emoji says, if the Democrats win the midterm, would the Dobbs decision be able to be overturned? Unlikely. You would still need the president to sign whatever legislation gets passed, unless you have a veto-proof majority in the Senate, which again is very unlikely. Dragon Killer says, I feel like they need to make there not be a right. I don't know what that means. Pihu says, did you hear about the Blue Butterfly Room in a Texas detention center? I don't know what that is. No, I haven't heard anything about that. Lever 2K says, thoughts on Iran war? Do you agree with the president's decision? No, I do not. Lever 2K, irresponsible, stupid, escalatory, waste of taxpayer money, a boon for the military-industrial complex, for the wealthy, for the Qataris, for the Saudis, for the Emiratis, for Netanyahu. But this is not for, it's not for the American people, and it's not for the citizens of Iran. The Blue Butterfly Room is what I was talking about. Yeah, I don't know. Pihu, yeah, where did you hear about the blue butterfly room? Because again, I'm not gonna put it past ICE to do shit like that. I'm just a little skeptical that they have. Okay, Fog of War Productions says, do you think Lindsey Graham has been touching himself a lot over the last 24 hours? No comment, Fog of Productions, and fuck you forever for putting that image in my head. Separate young girls from parents and grape them. I did read there is officially substantive reporting on sexual abuse that is happening in ICE and CBP detention facilities. So we no longer have to say that this is just a thing that we strongly suspect is happening. Now we can say that there is substantive reporting saying that that is happening. Oscar says, do you think there could be a winner in a war? I don't think so. Alrighty. Let's see here. Luke Rich says, who was the head of the city of Jamaica in 1907? I have no idea. Okay. Tyler says, under Trump, credit card delinquency has risen 12.75%. That makes perfect sense because, well, my live was just killed on TikTok. Let's see if I can even appeal this. Misinformation. Submit appeal. Submit. All right, yeah, we gotta wait and see now if I can get back on my TikTok live stream. You know, as I was reported for misinformation, and my live was just fucking fully taken down. So, if anybody over on Twitch and YouTube has any questions or anything about all the shit that's going on, now is the time. Hold on a second. John Abbott, I missed that thing you said. Fuentes is in his late 20s, so while he was on the younger side of the last war, he's still old enough to have seen friends come home broken, and he grew up watching people come home broken. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. No sympathy or respect for Nick Fuentes, but I think it is clear that war touches all of us. What's up, Triska? Yeah, I was reported for misinformation, and my live was summarily booted. I submitted an appeal, which I'm glad I'm able to do that at least. But yeah. Musking says you need a TikTok backup. Oh, I don't know. Because if I have a TikTok backup, is that going to, attract as many viewers? I don't know. Interesting. I really just gotta wait and see how my appeal goes. Triska says yes. Make a second account. All right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll have to make up a backup account and see. All right, that might be a little bit of a pain in the ass to go between the two separate accounts. But what are you gonna do? Alrighty. JP posted that on the Discord. Yeah, I didn't know that the rooms were called the blue butterfly rooms. But yeah, there was another guy who was saying that they had an incinerator as well, which is obviously really, concerning. But I also don't know if that's true. So, all right. So yeah, welcome everybody to Ask Me Anything About Politics. I'm here to answer your questions about politics. I'm checking I keep on checking and rechecking TikTok to see if my ban has been lifted. And thank you for using that emote that I put up there, Muzz King. I hope you guys are enjoying all the emotes and everything that I just put up there. But yeah, until I get some questions on the TikTok or the Twitch, I just got to keep on vamping and checking to see if my live access has been restored. And my live access has been restored on TikTok. Tyro says, make a backup and bring it in the box when they go live so they'll follow. Make a backup and bring it in the box when you go live so they'll follow. Ooh, interesting. D says, are there any other countries providing support for this action? I hear most allies are restricting their space for our campaign in Iran. Yes, I think it was Spain kicked us out of our. They say we're not allowed to launch any strikes from those air bases, I think. But yeah, I haven't seen any of our allies offering any substantive report. I think it's all been like, you know, uh, first they put a statement about how the Iranian government is repressive and guilty of crimes against humanity, and then they go, but this was still a really terrible idea and it was illegal, and blah blah blah. Scott Aiken says, banned for what? For misinformation, but apparently I won my appeal because now I'm back on TikTok. Alrighty. John Abbott says Blue Butterfly was the name and logo for Ghislaine Maxwell's recruitment company. From what I've seen, the existence of the restricted zone has been confirmed by some Democratic reps who tried to get in. Yeah, that all tracks. John Abbott. Luke Rich says, how many members of parliament are there in New Zealand? I have no idea, Luke Rich. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics, everybody. My name is Jared, and I'm here to answer all of your questions about politics. Mads says, do you not see immigration as a problem? Mads, haven't you asked me this like 4 or 5 times on the live stream already, Mads? Do you need me to do the answer again? Let me know. Triska says, the sound is much better in TikTok. Yeah, I have a better microphone and a better mic setup than I do for the other one. All right, welcome everybody. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. D. Scott says, is it true that a dozen underage detainees were shipped to Texas so they can't get abortions? I haven't heard that reporting. Again, I don't put it past him, but yeah, I cannot confirm or deny. It just really seems like something they would do. Matt says, I asked once a few days ago, but I wasn't able to hear. Okay, so yeah, there are potentially issues with immigration. If a lot of people cross the border all at once, it is possible that states and cities do not have resources available for all those different people that are coming in. If you are somebody who lives close to the border and it is terrifying to see roving bands of immigrants being shuffled across your backyard, led by a bunch of fucking, cartel associated coyotes, then yeah, that's a fucking issue. But immigrants are a net positive on the country. And so, I think that we can deal with all of those other issues without shooting us in the foot and just like cutting off immigration entirely. Let me know if you heard that answer, Mads. Lynn Genrich says Texas is a no abortion state, I think is probably what you're saying. Addie says Palestine or Israel. I'm for the citizens in both of those countries. I'm against the governments of both of those countries. All right, everybody, welcome. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. There's no judgments here. There's no roasting. There's no debating. There's no harassing. There's no bullying. Matt says, yes, that's true. Thanks. I'm from Europe where immigration is getting out of control. Yeah, I think it is definitely possible for immigration to be out of control, but immigration itself is a net positive. All right, Emoji says, can you talk about the Iran conflict? Sure. So there are a bunch of motivations for Trump personally for wanting to escalate and start a war in Iran. None of the justifications that him or his administration have offered up really make any sense. So we kind of have to sort of like guess at like the main motivation. But some potential motivations are things like a distraction from the Epstein files, a favor to people who are heavily invested in weapons manufacturers and the military-industrial complex, a way to appease the people that have bribed Donald Trump from Qatar and United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Doing the bidding of Netanyahu and his extremely far right-wing Israeli government. Trump has received positive press in the past from doing military action, and so potentially he is trying to get that kind of good press going forward. Depending on how things escalate, it's possible that Trump tries to use war with Iran as an excuse to cancel elections or federalize elections or seize ballot machines in Democratic or swing districts, shit like that. Alrighty, thank you, D. I appreciate you. Okay. Period says, should America go? Is there more to that sentence? La Flama Blanca says, how do you feel about the white race going extinct? I do not believe that the white race is going extinct. Triska, Muzzking, D. Scott, Crystal, and Aaron Gregory, thank you so much. Hope you reach my second Finger Hearts goal of the day. Alrighty. La Flama Blanca says it is. I don't think it is. So, do you think that the white race is going extinct because white people are having children with not white people, or do you think the white race is going extinct because there's a genocide? La Flama Blanca says the white race is going extinct. We are becoming minorities in our own country. What you're saying, La Flama Blanca, are like a bunch of racist dog whistles, and so I would appreciate it if you didn't say shit like that going forward. If you stick to asking questions, I may let you stay. But if you keep on saying statements that are factually inaccurate and are racist dog whistles, then I'm gonna have to boot you. La Flama Blanca says, dude, yeah, it's my live stream. I'm allowed to do whatever I want, man. So your move, my guy. Amir Gorbachev says, because birth rate is way down, that's why. La Flama Blanca says we went from 30% to 7%. Congratulations, you are out of here. I warned you. I warned you, La Flama. I warned you. CJ says, do you know why 8 Republican legislators went to Moscow in 2017? No, I do not. Potentially, they're compromised by the Russian government, but I have no idea. Ready. John Abbott says, white race isn't a biological classification. If you're really so concerned about it going extinct, just keep expanding it to include people that never has before, like they have done before. Yes, I believe that is accurate, John Abbott. It used to be that the Irish and the Italians didn't count as white. Tim Brown says, who do you think offed Kennedy? I have no idea. Den says, should foreign lobbying like AIPAC exist? So, Den, I agree with you that AIPAC is bad, but it is not accurate to describe them as foreign lobbying. They are registered as a domestic lobbying organization, and they are allowed to because they are funded exclusively with American dollars. So I agree with you that AIPAC should not exist. I agree with you that all right-wing lobbying organizations that are being astroturfed by the billionaire class should not exist. So AIPAC, Heritage Foundation, Federalist Society, you name it, man. Fucking get rid of all of them. Right. Reverend Jamal says AIPAC funded Epstein. They might have, but he also might have gotten funding from the Kremlin. You know, might have also gotten funding from North Korea. Who the fuck knows? Odin-san says, should earmarks be eradicated? That question's a little over my head, so sorry, Odin-san. But if you send me a DM, I will look into it. David Douglas says, birth rates dropping in all advanced industrialized nations. Are they going extinct? I believe that the population is responding to a bunch of different things. If you ask people who study population growth and decline, they will tell you it is a lot more complicated than just cost of living has gone up, ergo people can't afford to have kids. But I do believe that the billionaire class has made life so impossible to survive that people feel like they can't afford kids, and also that they don't want to bring kids into this world. If you look at animal populations, you see more instances of things like homosexual behavior when populations get at dangerous levels. And so it's possible that there's something like in our collective unconscious telling us, like, there are too many humans. And so we need to fucking take our foot off the gas. Tim Brown says, should we literally eat the rich or just figuratively? I vote figuratively. Tim Brown says, do you think we should make president of USA? I don't know what that means. The Fixer Mike says, reverse the Citizens United decision, restore the fairness doctrine. I completely agree with that. NRC says, which communist regime anytime in history gave citizens the most personal freedom? I don't believe there ever has been a real communist regime. Every country that has called themselves communist has actually been authoritarian dictatorships. Squirrel Man says, bro, look at the search bar on TikTok. No. Fletch Lives Again says, first-time home buyer average age is 40 now. And it's probably going to keep on going up. Fletch Lives. David Douglas says, Rattopia experiment mirrors what's going on with falling births and societal disruptions. That tracks for me, David Douglas. Cigarette Lighter 51 says, well, he walks out in the arena all dressed up to the brim. Said he'd just came down from a place I don't know, Highland Rim. It seems like you're just kind of spamming with some nonsense cigarettes, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of you. See you later. Tim Brown says, do you think communism will ever work? Is it always like Animal Farm, where the values are lost? I do not believe that there's anything inherent in communism that would not work with people. But I also believe in starting small. Like, why don't we just incentivize companies to be employee owned? Why don't we have a law where the top earner at a company can only make 50 times what the lowest earner can make at that company? Why don't we have a law saying that a certain number of seats on the board of directors of any company have to be represented by the actual workers who are making the materials? You know, maybe we can start thinking about expanding depending on how that goes. Teamer says, Republican or Democrats? Democrats. Invinca says, what does radical left mean? It really depends on who you ask. Invinca. For my money, the radical left are the people who want things like universal health care and free public colleges and an end to forever wars. But yeah, some people view the radical left differently. Nitsya Olmo says, when is your baby due? May 2nd. David Douglas says, Animal Farm also explains capitalism if you think about it. That's how I feel about it exactly. Max Schmidt says, and higher taxes. I don't know what that means. Is that the second part of a comment that I did not see, Max Schmidt? Let me know. John Abbott says, don't literally eat the rich. That's how you get prions. Compost the rich instead. No arguments here, John Abbott. No arguments here. Max Schmidt says about the radical left. Yeah, higher taxes for the rich, though, Max Schmidt. The radical left does not believe in higher taxes for everybody. They just believe in higher taxes for the rich. All right. Welcome, everybody. We got about 8 minutes left in the live stream, so we're just kind of vamping until we get some more questions. Martus Marcus says, your opinion on Hitler? I'm against him. Chris says, should the next administration arrest corporate leavers or move on as normal? No, I do not believe that we should just, let bygones be bygones, but we cannot ignore the rule of law when we are going after our political enemies. Like, it has to be by the book. We have to be able to make the case to the American people, to juries, to the Justice Department. Like, the evidence is out there. Like, there's a ton of evidence of these people breaking the law, And it's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of time and energy. And so we need to make sure that we are continuing to put pressure on people on the left for that accountability when they get into office. TL says, top 10% pay 70%, 76% of taxes. How much more should they pay? They should pay so much more, TL, that there are not people starving to death on the street while they are flying around in private jets. They should pay more to the point where people can afford to get whatever medical care they need, instead of them buying 10 different golden mansions. Justin Rump says, what are your qualifications for me to ask you about politics? I know a lot about it. Rodrigo says, why should they? It's their money. No, it's not. They exploited the working class in order to get that money. The workers created all of the value, and the rich stole all of the profits, Rodrigo. And I believe that that is a crime. And it is a crime that we can fix. We can readjust. Okay, Average Joe, great to see you again. Yes, and happy Monday to you as well. I'm not reading the rest of that comment. John Abbott says, they should pay so much more that they can't afford to buy 10-year-olds anymore. 100%, John Abbott. Accurate as hell. Oscar says, what do you think about Che Guevara? I don't know nearly enough about him to opine. The Fixer Mike says, the percentage of taxes isn't the point. There shouldn't be such an egregious gap in wealth. 100% agree. Fixer Mike. Brody Young says, what politics? My specialty is American politics. Okay. All right. Purite says, do you believe presidential pardons should exist? No, I do not. Tim Brown says, are you supportive of Paul Murphy, PBP, and Trotskyism? I don't know who those people are. Kimberlina says, how would we increase taxes on the rich? Higher jumps at tax bracket, additional brackets. Yeah, I think a progressive tax structure where when you make 30K, you pay a certain amount, and then every dollar you make above 30K, you get taxed a little bit more. Every dollar you make above $1 million, you get paid a little more, et cetera, et cetera. But we're also going to have to think about closing the loopholes that the billionaires use to avoid paying taxes in general. Like we're going to have a wealth tax. We're going to have to tax unrealized gains at a certain level, shit like that. Somsi says, opinion on the war in Iran. I'm against it. Tim Brown says, can I despise America if I want to? I don't think you should despise America. I think it's very fair to despise things that the American government has done in the past and the current people who are in charge of the American government. But America is a country just like every other country. It is filled with people who just want to live their fucking lives and, raise and love their children, do work, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, shit like that. Period says, does America destabilize the world? It has in the past. It has worked to restabilize the world in the past. The current version of America is 100% destabilizing the world. 100%. All right, the Fixer Mike says, tax capital gains, closely monitor crypto, revise the tax code. I am on board with all that. Israel Frank says, how can we fix AIPAC from owning our politicians? You need to vote for politicians who are willing to stand up to AIPAC. Politicians have, in the past, stood up to AIPAC, but then people voted those people out of office. So it's all about voting. Alice says, kind of sad a teacher pays more taxes than a millionaire. 100% accurate, Alice. I agree with that. Period says, like James Tallarico. Yeah, I like James Tallarico a lot. David Douglas says, used to be income over 200K was taxed at 96%, and that would be about 3 million cap today. I'm not mad at those numbers at all, David Douglas. No worries, Average Joe. There are certain words I don't want to say out loud. Okay, Mini Game says, Turkey was more stable when it didn't play by the book to control fascism. So when you say things should be by the book, is that a moral or a pragmatic position? I think that you need to do the right thing. I think that you always need to do the right thing. Otherwise, the people who want to do the wrong thing will use evidence of you doing the wrong thing to say, we are both the same. And so in order to deflate that argument, you need to be different and you need to be better. Alrighty, D says, you seem quite well versed. Is that from personal growth and research or more formal education? Personal growth and research. I studied this stuff a little bit in high school and college, but most of my education on politics came from personal growth and research. David says, isn't that what both sides do? LOL. No. David, no. The both sides narrative is false. I am happy to go into more detail on that if you like. Let me know. Alrighty. Salazar Lopez says, why do liberals want more Islamic immigrants? Liberals do not particularly want more of any specific kind of immigrants, nor do they want more immigrants in general. We just recognize that immigrants are net positive, and so we should treat them humanely. And they're humans, so we should treat them humanely. Period says, is legality and morality more or less the same? Definitely not the same. Like things can be immoral but still legal. Right. Now says, is the Zenin clan salvageable? I don't know. I don't follow JJK lore all that closely. My wife would definitely be able to answer that better than I. Mustafa says, Democrats or Republicans? Democrats. Rodrigo says, I think billionaires should be taxed more. I completely agree. Mac Vaught says, liberals don't want more immigrants, but they are a net positive? ? We don't want a specific kind of immigrant. Like, we're not trying to get more Islamic immigrants or Mexican immigrants specifically, but immigrants are a net positive. Enzo says, what do you think about Trump attacking Iran, even though they're not an immediate threat to us? It was stupid. It was irresponsible. It was a waste of taxpayer money. It was a giveaway to the billionaire class. I cannot say enough negative things about it. Right. Salazar Lopez says, do you think it'd be a good thing if more Islamic immigrants came to the U.S.? It would be a good thing it's a good thing when immigrants come to the U.S. I don't know what the correct number of immigrants is, but it seems as though when we, that immigrants are a net positive. So seems like more might be better, at least up until a point. All right, David Douglas says, we don't want more, we just aren't afraid of them. We used to be the melting pot when I was a kid. Yeah. Rico, John says, my fellow conservatives say they're against Muslims, but they say they're standing with Iran. What a weird, yeah, seems kind of hypocritical, I think. Amit says, should the country follow only morality even if it's bad for the country? I mean, that's a pretty heady, ethereal question, Amit. I'm sure that I could think of examples when following morality would be bad for the country. So I'm definitely not dogmatic about more philosophical questions like that. I am much more dogmatic about specific policy issues like we should have universal health care and free public college, and we should tax the wealthy in order to make that happen. Italiana, great to see you again. Average Joe says, generally speaking, which do you believe is more common? Campaign finance influences political positions, or political positions attract campaign financing for the love of the game? I think it's probably the latter, but I think it's probably the former. But, you know, it's a real chicken and egg situation there. John Abbott says the Republicans don't want more immigrants. They should stop making the rest of the world a worse place so that people have to flee here to be safe. That is 100% accurate, John Abbott. JJ Dimmitt says, do you believe there should be term limits in Congress? Yes, I do. Liam says, have you heard the recent news regarding, I'm not saying that, Liam. Liam, stop saying that or I'm going to boot you. ICU Doodle says, I'm a senior citizen, have been homeless for 4 years. I'm really sorry to hear that. ICU Doodle, I don't want any more migrants in the United States. Why, ICU Doodle? Migrants aren't the reason why you're homeless. The rich are the reason why you're homeless. David says, sorry, Israel won't let Democrats do anything either. That is inaccurate. There are a record number of Democrats voting against sending more money and weapons to Israel, and there are 0 Republicans voting against sending money and weapons to Israel. Smitty says, who is that person? He's trying to get me to say my cock. So Mac Vott says, I think the most humane way is to offer undocumented immigrants a free flight home and $2,000, right? It might be the most humane, but I don't know if that's the smartest thing to do. All right, looks like Hebrew Letter says the United States and Israel are committing war crimes in Iran. They killed an 86-year-old man. Yeah, and Israel bombed a school. So that's some fucking genocide shit. Period says, would you yourself ever be interested in being a politician? Yes, but I don't know if I would ever do it. ICU Doodle says the sovereign citizen movement is funding migrants into the United States through banking and broker. I do not believe that is accurate. ICU Doodle. Milton Disco says, what do you think about the U.S. attacking Iran to make China less productive? I think Trump escalating a war with Iran is stupid, illegal, irresponsible, a waste of taxpayer dollars, a giveaway to the billionaire class. Yeah, it's not for us that they're doing it. It's not for Americans, and it's not for the citizens of Iran. Brando says, should there be a separation between church and state? Yes. David says, now after we all hate Israel 2 years ago when AOC vote no against Mrs. Free Bill, don't be played. David, what you were saying doesn't make any sense. If you would like to engage in the substance, ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Mr. Satire says, God bless the United States of Israel. I think you're being sarcastic. Enzo says, I think we should be making easier to become a resident or citizen of the U.S. instead of making it harder. Completely agree with that. Dennis St. Vincent says he wants any vengeance reaction in U.S. to impose martial law, stop elections, and he stays indefinitely. I agree with you, Dennis, that I believe that is part of his motivation. The Lyman the Wire says increase immigration but make it women only. Women fleeing despotic states need asylum the most. Category almost never commits sexual assault. And the alt-right red pill pipeline all in one go. What do you reckon? Good idea or two, Ali G? I think it's a funny idea, but it doesn't take a lot of imagination to recognize where that can go wrong. The Lime and the Wire. Milton Tisco says, Israel should be dissolved. Do you agree? I don't agree. There are people who are living there who are innocent civilians who just want to live their fucking lives. David says, Democrats were funding Israel against Taylor Greene bill. Only now do they hate them. No, only now is there a different relationship between America and Israel. Only now do we have politicians who are winning elections after standing up to AIPAC. Whereas before, politicians standing up to AIPAC was a death sentence. They would lose their election. I, David. A. David says, not mentions to under Biden. No one cared about Epstein's. You know what? I'm done with you. See you later. Alrighty. Milton Disco says, I mean, we are sending our taxes to find everything for them. Most our country is divided. Yeah, I don't believe that we should be sending more money and weapons to Israel, and neither does the Democratic Party at large. Arab Bathis says, is it safe to say Gulf states are allying with Israel in this conflict against Iran? I believe that that is a pretty, I believe that is relatively accurate, though, you know, I cannot say for 100% sure. Hebrew Letter says, this war is pretty cool, even though it hurts. I disagree. You are in question jail. So if the next thing you say is not a question, I'm going to boot you. Eastern European Letter says, what do you think about the Lukashenko regime? I vaguely remember Lukashenko being a bad guy, so I'm pretty confident saying I'm against it. Yeah, I don't really remember Lukashenko all that much. Rico John says, America is fighting for women's rights in Iran, but trying to take them away here. I mean, you're half right, John. I don't think that America is really fighting for women's rights in Iran. Dave Lane says, how's Trump doing? Terribly. There are not enough negative words in the dictionary to accurately describe how shitty of a job that Donald Trump is doing as president. John Bradley says, what do you think about some saying this is a move against China? I need somebody to connect those dots for me because this is the first time I'm hearing about that theory. 1974 Ford Pinto Wagon says, what is likely to happen soon that will further divide the left and right? I don't know. It seems kind of like a lot of people on the left and right are united in not wanting this war to happen with Iran. So, you know, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful about more people joining our coalition. Quixote Espe says, Israel or Palestine, who do you support? I support the people of both countries, and I'm against the governing bodies of both countries. Enzo says, I don't think this is to counter Trump. I think Trump is just doing whatever he wants and is using China as an excuse. Potentially. That makes sense. Average Joe says, would you agree that if the Democratic Party refuses to adopt an anti-Israel policy position on the basis of human rights and accountability, then the right wing will take it on the basis of anti-Semitism? I do not believe that the greater Republican Party is ever going to abandon Israel. No, I don't think that the right would ever do that for political expediency. You know, they will only give lip service to it leading up to elections. You know, they will, the same way that Trump and a bunch of Republicans won in 24. They lied about being anti-war and willing to stand up to AIPAC and Netanyahu. They lied about ending the war in Ukraine. He lied about ending the war in Israel. You know, just lies. Dave Lane says, is there a reason Trump is doing bad? There's a billion reasons, Dave. He has a cryptocurrency. He is accepting bribes from foreign nationals. He is selling pardons. He is enabling Stephen Miller to run his personal Gestapo, murdering people and sexually assaulting people and detaining people illegally. Energy costs going up because he's giving the farm to a bunch of AI companies and killing green energy projects that were 99% finished. There's so many things. He's engaged in a cover-up of the Epstein files. You know, do you need more, Dave Lane? Oh, yeah, I'm a little spicy. Max Schmidt says, people who don't understand the Iran situation just disagree. I do not know what that means. What's up, Mia? Great to see you again. Devsky says, was the strike on Iran constitutional? No, it was not. John Bradley says, they were stating that China gets a good chunk of oil from Iran. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I need to look into that. Matt says, do you believe that Trump did more with Epstein than he said? Yes, 100%. Dave Lane says, okay, I didn't realize this was a liberal page. Oh, so you just don't like facts, Dave Lane? Ogre says, not yet, question mark. I don't know what that means. 1974 says 73% of Republicans are still happy with him. Yes, but only a small fraction of them are happy about us going to war in Iran. What is up, Lauren? Great to see you again. Everybody, regular live stream is Monday through Friday starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you want to support the live stream financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling. I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send emotes and bits on Twitch. You can become a super fan on TikTok. You can become a subscriber on Twitch. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free. Costs you $0. Helps me out a ton. Let's see here. Any questions that I'm not able to get to on the live stream, do not be shy about reaching out. I want to be a resource for you guys. So if there are ways that I can help you be more informed, involved in politics, then use me and abuse me. Use me until you use me up. DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can also join my Discord. That's another great place to get in touch. Over says constitutional attacks, Article 2 and Article 51. We decide if the attacks were constitutional soon. Question mark? Ask the Republicans who are in charge of the entire fucking government if they're going to do anything about that. Nate says, does the president really have all this power, or can it be stopped before the final decision? It can be stopped, but Congress has to do it. Matt says, I can't believe that Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He wants it because Obama has one, and he is chronically jealous of Obama. Israel Franco says, why do the Republicans say Democratic presidents caused war without approval? It is true that every president, Democrat and Republican, has abused their powers as commander-in-chief. But it is extremely different. The Republican Party is the one that starts these forever wars. Anything Debating says, who do you want to be the Democratic nominee for 28? For me, it's AOC. I love AOC. I think she's great. My number one right now is Chris Murphy, but nobody agrees with me. I just really like Chris Murphy. Alrighty. Let's see what we got here. Tommy Brown says, may I join? Probably not. I'm getting kind of tired. I don't know if I have a whole ass conversation in me. Jesus says, Trump tried to take credit for the Operation El Mencho is false and a dangerous claim at that. I don't know enough about that to opine. 1974 says, if Trump gets a Nobel Peace Prize, the prize will no longer have any meaning. 100% accurate. Ken Nair says, would Josh Shapiro be a good 2028 candidate? I think so. People in Pennsylvania fucking love him. Let's see here. Scrolling up. Fayoradder says, opinion on how Jarvin IV is running. I don't know what those are. Okay, scrolling up. Anything Debating says Josh Shapiro takes AIPAC money. Anything Debating, I do not believe that taking money from specific people or corporations is a deal breaker. Because the Democratic Party has a massive fundraising deficit compared to the Republican Party. And so I will give Democrats leeway on this because right now they are fighting a war that is rigged against them. Dave Lane says, you have no facts, you're just a liberal that spits out lies. Why was it okay for Obama to deport? Dave Lane, that is not the kind of shit that I allow on my live stream, so you are out of here. Pedalword says, your opinion on Newsom as a Democratic candidate. I am not voting for Newsom in the primary. I do believe that he would be a perfectly fine president, and so I will definitely be voting for him if he is the nominee in the general. Alrighty. Jesus says, what are the most likely 2028 candidates for Democrats? I have no idea. All right, everybody. We are going to start wrapping things up. Thank you for being here. Join the Discord. It's got great recommendations for work that we can do as individual citizens to try to help what's going on here. Quixote says he couldn't answer David's question. Is David the guy that I just blocked? Oh, Dave Lane. No, I can answer that question. But Dave is not operating in good faith. He said that I'm a liberal and all I do is lie. So yeah, that guy can go SMyBH. Thank you very much to my regular financial supporters: Robert, Shannon, Carmine, Patrick, Melissa, the two Seans, Dan Blackroyd, Cliff, Triska Musking, and It's the Rocketeer. Let's see here. All right, everybody. Do the work. That is the only way we get out of this, is if we all do the work. And if we all do the work, then there'll be less work for us all to do. I would love to do less. You know? I would love to do less. TL says Newsom vetoed unanimously passed bipartisan bill to account for $24 billion that disappeared. I don't know anything about that, TL, but you do not need to convince me not to vote for Newsom in the primary. But I guarantee you he will be better than whatever ding-dong the Republican Party puts forth. So if he is the nominee, then he's got my fucking vote. Matt says, just sent you a DM about a question. I will happily answer that one, Mads. So yeah, do the work, everybody. That's the only way we get out of this. And if you don't know what the work is, go to my Discord. Link is in the bio. There's a thread called The Work. Just do that stuff. Join groups that are already doing this work. Vote Save America. Run for something. Indivisible. Swing left. Yeah. All right, everybody. Do the work. Be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Good.